I've been doing this channel for about a year. And over the course of this channel, on this topic, the UFO topic, I've changed. Now, I recognize this change in myself, but I recognize this change in myself for a fundamental reason. Beforehand, this was me looking at a UFO topic just as a UFO topic, anything unto itself. Now, I cover politics with historical context, which means that I do a political channel that intersects the UFO topic, as opposed to it being a thing unto itself. And that has made me take a somewhat of a darker tint on this particular topic. Last year, a bombshell report came out in the New York Times, Politico, Washington Post, and it was all over the media, be it CNN, be it MSNBC, Fox News, etc. The government has been studying UFOs. Harry Reid apparently commissioned a report. Now, even this is somewhat of an obfuscation because Grant Cameron knew that this information was going to be released a year or two prior to the release of the information, meaning it's not a completely on-board release of information. It's being done so in somewhat of a managed way. Take a look at this. This took place on CNN. This is Luis Elizondo. This is the guy who worked for the program, AATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, something like that. He's the guy who was heading this agency up. And listen to what he said on CNN. This was a bombshell. This should have been a magnificent bombshell. The idea that you go to a commercial after this is stunning. I mean, fuck. We're a ball in space. We're a rock flying through the cosmos. And as a rock flying through the cosmos, I'm always enamored that people have this religious belief that for whatever reason, God just created this planet and put a ball around it. Nonsense. In the same way that life sprung up on this planet, you have life that grows in volcanic pits. Life can, for the most part, grow anywhere that life gets the opportunity to grow. We're a ball flying through the cosmos. We're not special. Everything that we learn about ourselves makes man more diminutive. Earth is not the center of the universe. Earth is not the center of this galaxy, per se. We're, flying at the edges. Take a look at Luis Elizondo. This is the guy who was the head of the program that was studying, they call it UAPs, but they change it to UAPs because they don't want to deal with the stigma associated with UFOs. Again, politics. Politics matters. There is a gentleman, I think his name is Ryan. He has a channel called Post Disclosure. I think he is magnificently wrong on this. I think he is magnificently wrong. He believes that this is going to be this kind of new age. Yes, I think it's going to be a new age, but I don't think he's going to get what he thinks is going to take place. I was the guy, before I did this channel, that was out there waving the sun. I got my shirt off with UFO written on it. Yes! Space brother! Space brother! And while that hippie on the top of the building waving the sign is still there, it is ensconced in a darker person who looks at this, whereas I don't necessarily see as a threat from outside of our solar system or our planet. I do see it as a threat from the politics of what this will be used for. Take a look at Luis Elizondo. This is a military guy, by the way. He's a military guy first, or intelligence guy first. Look at this.
I think what's important is that we have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft. Let's call them aircraft. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological. Hypersonic velocities, low observability, positive lift, again, seemingly in defying the laws of aerodynamics. So people are talking.
So do you think, I know, but do you believe, when you get that Navy pilot saying what he said, do you think that that was, a UFO? To obviously, I don't have any other word to use, or that, or something else.
Sure, that's a great question. Keeping in mind, it's not just the pilot's testimony on an observation. Sure, when someone comes to you who's in charge of a multi-million-dollar weapon platform, who maintains a top-secret security clearance, who is paid and trusted by this country to go fight wars and to fly over cities with live munitions, and by the way, they're trained observers with millions of dollars invested in their training,
Yep.
I would submit to you it's pretty compelling. But on top of that, it's not just the eyewitness testimony. It is actual electro-optical data and radar returns. It's also people like radar operators and air traffic controllers. So I think the discussion should be maybe a little bit broader than that. I think people are focusing just on 2 videos coming from a set of F-18s when really it's a lot more than that.
So recently, I guess it was in October, astronomers spotted what they say could be the first interstellar asteroid. You see it there, kind of that strange shape from beyond the solar system. What do you see when you look at that?
Well, Ms. Burnett, I have to admit to you, when I ran this program, I was fundamentally looking at, my colleagues looking at 2 things.
Yeah.
What is it and how does it work? We have deliberately stayed away from going down the rabbit hole of who's behind the wheel and what are their intentions.
Yeah.
Because that...
Do you honestly believe that? Like, before I let him continue, do you honestly believe what he just said? We've stayed behind who's behind the wheel and what are their intentions. Are you telling me that you're researching a phenomena, and in looking at this particular phenomena, you believe that your planet is being visited and invaded, as you would put it, by something else from beyond this planet's shores, and that you're staying away from the intentions of the beings or the intentions of whatever is in the vehicle itself? How on earth can you assess whether or not the thing that's flying in your airspace is a threat if you're not going to try to find some way of determining the intentions of the things in that's in the vehicles? Like, I don't believe all of this is taking place above board. I just don't. There's a politics associated with the release of this information. The United States has been studying this stuff for years. And I know some people dislike Bob Lazar, and I'm going to do a story on Bob Lazar because I watched that movie and I'm enamored by it. But in this particular case, what he's saying here should be mind-blowing regardless. This is a guy, this is confirmation. This is coming out, giving confirmation that yes, this is a real phenomena. Yes, we've been studying this phenomenon. Yes, they've been studying it for years, but okay, whatever. He's saying just, for a few years, whatever. But this is somebody who was in the government, and mind you, it's not just him. Military personnel also coming out saying, yes, I was in the air, I was watching that craft, people on a boat, on a military vessel, yes, we were watching the analytics as though that craft was flying in the air. This is confirmation from elements of the government coming out saying this, even though it's not disclosure from the standpoint of the government doing it. I just want to be clear on that point, and this is taking too long, but I'm going to let him finish, and I want to go into the article itself.
A lot of people have a lot of feelings towards that and are very emotional about that. And what I wanted to do is to allow the data to speak for itself and then use that data to inform leadership, senior DoD leadership, about the potential threat that these type of technologies pose to national security, especially over any type of controlled airspace that we might have. So I'm not trying to be evasive in any way or vague with your answer, but
yeah. Well,
I think there's a lot of possibilities.
Look, and I know you think it's important. I know you think that the government didn't take the threat seriously enough. So let me just ask you point blank the question. Do you believe that life from somewhere else, while you ran this program, came here, visited, observed?
I will tell you unequivocally that through the observation, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena, that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
So I know you're being clear, but I mean, the answer is yes. I
can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
I've shown this video before, so I just wanted, just in case somebody stumbles on this video and they're like, "What the hell's going on?" Luis Elizondo comes out saying it in a particular way, but yes, he believes, saying yes, we were visiting. Take a look at this. So George Knapp has been following this, and George Knapp has been somewhat of the insider on this story. George Knapp has information, and George Knapp is not necessarily releasing to everybody else. That said, he is leaking out information, and people are leaking out information to him. Knapp has said it's not just one aspect of people in the government, it's multiple sources that are putting out information on this front. Take a look at what he said coming up for 2019. This is an interview he was having with the same Luis Elizondo. Now, these guys have put out metamaterials, these guys have put out investigations that have been some of the stuff that the United States has been studying, getting into like Star Trek stuff. It's phenomenal stuff that these guys have been studying that they've been keeping from the public. The thing I want to get to is this part, towards the end. Now, Luis Elizondo, after releasing this, goes to work for Tom DeLonge in Academy to the Stars. Academy to the Stars is supposedly an avenue to release this information to the public and put it out. For those who are interested in the Clinton leaks and the emails, Tom DeLonge is all through those emails. Tom DeLonge is all through the Clinton emails. People thought Tom DeLonge was full of it until they realized, oh my God, Tom DeLonge has the contacts that Tom DeLonge says he has. And as evidence of that, Grant Cameron has done an awesome presentation about the UFO stuff that are in the emails, the leaks. It's phenomenal. It's amazing, some of the stuff that comes up. But nonetheless, Academy to the Stars, Luis Elizondo, and in addition to a few other people who work for it. It's this part that's a little disturbing. Well, and let this play for a little bit.
Who are impatient for information, and rightfully so. I get it. We're human beings. We want our information. We want it now. And why are you holding back? But sometimes you have to let the right people in the right positions digest information, right? Sometimes you can't expect a 10-course meal to be digested all in one bite. It just can't happen. And for some people, this UAP issue, they're really learning about it for the first time, despite what they may have seen on popular TV or something like that, or maybe on a movie. This is really the first time they're being told, hey, listen, Jack or Jane, this is a serious topic. This is something that your Department of Defense has been tracking. You probably want to learn a little bit more about what's going on and what they're seeing.
Can you say much, what can you say about what comes next? You've dropped hints that big stuff is coming next year, 2019. Give me some areas where people might hear some news.
Sure. So, when you say something big is coming, what does that mean? What can mean? A whole bunch of things. From my perspective, my goal has always been being able to get the right information to the right people in the right places. That's really what it is about for me. And informing those individuals so decisions can be made, so we can really take a look at this issue from a holistic, a collective perspective, and then have that information get to a point where now the government's doing its job and informing people, right? So it shouldn't be World According to Luis Elizondo. It shouldn't be Lou informing everybody. It should be those in those positions that have that authority to inform the American people, and my job is to facilitate that process. But I think in the course of doing that, we've made significant progress in certain key areas. I think we have a much better understanding of the breadth and scope that the Department of Defense has played in recent times, not historical back to talk 40s and 50s. I'm talking very recent regarding the UFO phenomena. I think people would be surprised to know just how frequent and the volume in which these things are apparently recorded and observed by active duty military people on missions around the world, by the way. There's also some very interesting, I think, congruencies, some interesting relationships that are just now really coming into light for the very first time. New information that I think if people found out would be very, very surprised. I think some people might be a little bit apprehensive and scratch their head and say, wow, what does that mean for the rest of us? Other people might say, aha, I told you so, right? So it depends on who in the audience will be listening, but I think there's something for everybody. I think at the end of the day, information is information, and you're going to do with that information whatever it is you want to do with it. That's not up for me to decide. That's up for you to decide. That's up for the audience to.
Another evasive answer. Just tell me what the fuck you know. I know that sounds bad. The part of this article that I want to get to is the bottom. Essentially, George Knapp goes over and gives a recount of what's been given within the course of the year. The military personnel coming forward, the metamaterials that they've established, the research that the military was doing into these kind of exotic physics, the videos themselves. It's this part that's worrying. Right here. Something like the aerospace, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, when larger, not only private TTS, but also on the inside. Right here. Elizondo says it's too early to reveal what the analysis has uncovered, but it says the initial work is promising. Among the potential developments in 2019 could be a Pentagon launch. Could the Pentagon launch a new, publicly acknowledged UFO effort? Something like Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, when a larger, not only private TTSA, but also on the inside. Wouldn't that be a great accomplishment, George? No. I'm sorry, no. Fact of the matter is, if the Pentagon is launching a program, it's not launching it for flowers and buttercups, it's launching it for military application. That military application is something that the Department of Defense, especially from the standpoint of a global domination, has been trying to accomplish. Don't take my word for it. Look at what the military wants to accomplish within regards to having the ability to have things flying across flying across the atmosphere, being able to drop munitions into various places around the globe. Look at what they do now and ask yourself, what would that look like with much, much more advanced technology? Or what does your world look like with an otherworldly threat that's used constantly? Do you realize that each and everything, when politics is trying to get something accomplished, they use threats? When they say, hey, we're going to give you jobs, that in and of itself is a threat. This idea of you not having access to your needs, the whole point of saying jobs is, look, without me, you're not going to have access to the things that you need. You're going to be dirt poor and hungry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or conversely, I'm going to make sure that you have a job or have a decent living standard. Those things are threats, even though it's somewhat of a subtle threat. Al-Qaeda, immigrants, the Russians, threats. Somebody is out to get you. Somewhere else is out to get you. And me, whatever the politician, is going to be standing here between to protect you. You just need to let me do whatever I want to pursue, whether it's tax cuts for the rich or whether it's whatever. Right now, we're spending nearly $1 trillion a year hunting down people in caves. They're asking whether or not it would be awesome if the Pentagon instituted a program for this persistent otherworldly threat that's beyond our shores. My answer to that is no. If we're spending nearly $1 trillion a year now, how much will we be spending for this otherworldly permanent threat that's off our shores? We don't even know the information is true. We have no idea whether those craft that they're seeing on this thing was some kind of black budget project. We have no idea the advancements that these guys are holding in the military thing. We don't know what's taking place in regards to this. Information in and of itself, right now, just in our own world, not exopolitics, our own politics, is muddled. It's obfuscation after obfuscation. There's lies on top of lies pursuant to certain agendas. Did they have a chemical weapon strike in Syria? No. Didn't stop them from launching those attacks. Didn't stop the mainstream media from publishing stories as if they did have those chemical weapon strikes attacks. Did the Rheinstock set to fire or blaze herself? Did the Lusitania, the Spanish, sink the... Lusitania? Was there a Gulf of Tonkin? You know, many of these things are obfuscations in pursuant to a particular agenda. And fear often is used for that particular agenda. It is a worrying development that this seemingly a persistent threat is beyond our shores, and that we need to have some kind of threat identification program in the Pentagon in order to assess that threat and the potential to use the technology for that. If the Pentagon is making that technology is going to be used for issues of war. Be very clear on this. I understand the hippie in me wants to look at this and says, yes, this is great, this information is getting out. But the way this information is getting out is within the context of a threat. The name of the program is even that he worked for threat identification. Regardless of the intentions of the individuals involved, which I don't believe are fully above board, the politics of this will be a persistent threat from beyond our shores that requires permanent and indefinite military expenditure. Whatever technology that comes from that maybe fizzles down, let's be very clear that what this will end up being. Do you honestly believe, looking at your politics now, that somehow the politics will automatically change if you find that there is something beyond our shores and they release this information? It will not. It will not. Just saying. If post-disclosure wants to debate this topic, I am more than happy to have this particular conversation and the debate on this topic. I've asked him on the show for an interview. He's turned me down on that. So, but fair enough. He says he's not doing interviews. I have greatly mixed feelings on this. Like in one case, it's great that they're releasing information, but Jesus Christ, the way it's being released, I am skeptical that this is going to turn great. Let's say it that way. Garnome, this dude has no idea what in global military inventory. People like that don't go on CNN. You talking about Lou Elizondo? Garden, I disagree with you on this. So one or two things is happening. Either Lou is releasing this information in a managed way, meaning this is the hatchet guy. This is the guy who's coming out with this idea of managing the way the information is released. Or, like you said, he doesn't know what's in the military. Or, all of this is above board, and it is something that's visiting our shores. I am more inclined to believe that, yes, there may be something visiting our shores, but do we know the reality of this particular situation? No. No. Dude, you want to believe so badly you're convinced that Hillary would have opened up the books. Yes, I think she would have opened up the books. But I think you want to disbelieve so badly that you just kind of, the logical faculties are being ignored. You have a particular ideology, and with that ideology, you're just kind of using that to explain everything. You don't know. That's the problem. And you believe that you do. You don't know what you're talking about. Rob Illinois, he's trying to get the commission, getting the government to invest in money pit. There. Like, it is very possible that Lou is coming out with this information not because he's just some kind of patsy, but because he's a managed person to manage the release of the information. Just saying. Just look with infrared camera to the sky at night. You know there's strange things in the sky. So, Low 177, I don't doubt that part. I don't doubt that there are strange things in the sky. But my issue here is A, the reality of this is unknown, is unclear. That's the first part. B, the government has lied about this for like 50, 60 years, so all of a sudden somebody coming out from the government in this way, it becomes a little, it's just the truth. C, Tom DeLonge had been working behind the scenes to get this information out, and this information was forecasted to come out for years. So the idea that, these articles just sort of came out randomly, not so much. Tom DeLonge expressed what he needed, and he was given these things. What Lou Elizondo knows is unknown. What he's trying to put out in the reasons are unknown. What the military personnel was seeing in the sky and whether or not it was ours or something else is unknown. All of this stuff is unknowns. You're stuck in the situation of either believing them or not believing them, in which case you're still stuck with the idea of just belief. So, just saying. John Podesta was a Troy. No, he wasn't. Remember, this is the guy who thinks he floats around like Casper without a sales pitch. Without a sales pitch? What are you talking about? Also, you're wrong. The aliens have visited us and continue to do so. I'm not just buying into the same sorts of disinfo. Look, I don't... I think your problem here is that you have beliefs, even though you don't think you have beliefs. I'm not asking you to buy into anything. My argument here is all of this is unknown, and that this will turn into a permanent military expenditure. You're reading the comments wrong. Am I reading the comments wrong? Let's see. What am I reading wrong? If they are a threat, we'd know it. Wesley Walker, that's why I am. If it's a threat, we'd know it. Now, people say I'm wrong on that part, saying, oh, they could have just waited until, the technology was so advanced that they wouldn't necessarily care. You read two comments as if they were one. Oh, my bad. Freaking capitalism can't even find out about space life without sales. Yes! Like, he's working for a company. He's working for a company. It's a cookbook. That's funny. Twilight Zone. It's funny. It's a cookbook. It's The Serve Man. The Serve Man. I don't know if people remember that one. Serve Man. Let's see. What did Bob say? Remember, this is the guy who thinks he floats around like Casper when he sleeps. I don't know what that means. And Robert, yeah, freaking capitalism. Let me make sure. Sorry, man, that is delusional. You're making the same argument as a Christian that I just don't want to believe in God. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And yeah, I think you're massively wrong. Let's see, Frost Nixon. I think you have a particular ideology of the world. And your ideology of the world is clouding your judgment on issues where it makes you take a darker tint as opposed to just taking somewhat of an agnostic tint. I think the agnostic point of view is the right view. That these are unknowns. Believing Hillary would open the books is an act of it's not an act of anything. It's just believing she would do it. You believe that she wouldn't do it. Conversely, I think that's an act of desperation. So I think you're delusional to not believe it. That goes both ways. It's nonsense. It doesn't go anywhere. My guess, when the Martians colonize, the capitalist class will be the first to be harvested. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. That's funny. You should check out Jay Posadas. I don't know what Posadas is. Frost Nixon, September 24th, 1952 memorandum. Director of Central Intelligence also stated the CIA wanted to weaponize UFOs. Yes, of course. Of course. Too bad Jamarl never made it through season 3 of The Expanse. I haven't made it through season 1 of The Expanse. I'm talking about season 3. Archaeological evidence is my evidence. I prefer science. That's why I like the architects and engineers for 9/11 truth. Well, we're not talking about 9/11, so. All right, I'm going to end this here. We all have a different perspective of this, and that's fine. I choose the I don't know perspective more than anything else on this. I'm agnostic about the UFO and visitation. I just don't believe the bullshit military profiteers push. Fair enough. I mean, as I said, I don't know Lou Elizondo's angle on this. And to me, like I made the argument before, it comes across as it's a permanent military expenditure. There's some otherworldly threat that, some otherworldly threat. And in this otherworldly threat, there's something out there. And there's something out there that we need to study, and we need to, build military and all this other stuff. The stuff that these guys, you think that they spend $1 trillion, that's too much now. Imagine when it comes Because regardless of what any of you think, this is above board. This is conversations that they're having in mainstream media. Tucker Carlson has multiple of these guys on. MSNBC, New York Times, CNN, all of these guys. These are main publications where this has become above board and somewhat of a serious topic. And because this is above board and because this is a serious topic, they're talking about Pentagon expenditures. Well, if the Pentagon is building stuff, the Pentagon is not building stuff so you can have a new toaster that runs off of some kind of new energy source. They're talking about weaponizing this technology. So, be aware. Be aware. Gardner, I've seen flying objects that can explain, and I've had strange experiences. I'm not sort of a hardcore rationalist. Fair enough. But that's just it. I think it's a rational perspective to look at the world and say we are a ball flying through space, and just like we are trying to go to the moon and the Mars and all this other stuff, that there will be other civilizations that might be 1,000 years ahead of us, and being that far ahead of us may have technology that we don't particularly have. Like cavemen who have strings and cans together, looking at the world saying, there's nothing else out there because they're not using strings and a cord. So yeah. What the fuck here is the comment, Jamal? Just read. What the fuck? Where is the comment, Jamal? Just read. What are you talking about? So if contact was made, would capitalism survive, or would there be a whole system change? Lance, this is kind of my point. Do you honestly believe that the capitalists will somehow give up their profit earning and profiteering if something like that was uncovered? And that should scare the shit out of you. That should scare the shit out of you. I think being rational is not assuming one way or the other, not just with UFOs, but with everything. Yeah, but that doesn't get you anywhere. I'm sorry, that doesn't get you anywhere. That just gets you walking through life without believing anything, which, again, doesn't get you anywhere. You have to believe something just to function. More likely, aliens will regard us as dangerously retarded cousins. That's funny. That's funny. All right, I'm going to end this. Yes, I'm glad that this becomes above board, but I don't know what it means for it to come above board for political sense. And up to this point, the politics that we have been encountering has been dark. I mean, keep in mind, we've been in a war where we've been killing and assisting Saudi Arabia in murdering a large number of people. Obama greenlit that war knowing they were going to kill a large number of people. Not to mention Iraq, not to mention World War I and II, not to mention, like, these wars are constant where we kill and maim. We are not rational human beings. We're destroying our own ecosystem. So this idea of rationality, I don't know where that goes from the standpoint of human beings. Stay tuned. I mean, I would argue that all of this is unknowns. Stay tuned. Let's see what happens. All right, guys. If you enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.